Hello everybody, welcome to this video on batch processing and batch analysis. Batch processing and analysis are powerful tools that enable groups of waveforms or other forms of data to be processed with just one step in a sequence, rather than having to program multiple analysis or post-processing steps. This functionality can allow for simplified processing of large quantities of data in offline modes and for multi-channel test systems that are running sequences. Let's go see how this can be done. To start off, I'd like to teach you about batch processing. I will be showing you how it works with an offline post-processing step, but the same method can be used for a post-processing step in a sequence. To start off, you'll need a group. For using the batch processing method, we're going to need a group of either curves, like we have here, or values. For the later on batch analysis, it will be a group of waveforms. So if you're not familiar with how to create a group, basically all you need is, like I said earlier, a bunch of curves or values, and you highlight them, right click, and you press new group. I already have this group called stats curves here, so I'll be using that. Going forwards, what I'll be doing is I will open up an offline post-processing step, and I'll be using a maximum step. This step is configured so that when it runs on the operand, it calculates the maximum point found on that curve. So in this case, for the operand A, I'm choosing this group of curves rather than just one of the curves. And when I press apply, we see that there is a list of all of the maximum points found for each of those curves. Like I said, this same process can be done for a step in a sequence, and you'll get the same type of result. Next up, we're going to take a look at batch analysis. So batch analysis is a very similar concept to batch processing, except it's going to be happening with an analysis step. So what we have here is the skeleton of a sequence that is just an electrical measurement, pretty simple loopback with an audio interface. I have one stimulus step, and I have an acquisition step that is going to be playing out of two channels. So what we have here are two recorded time waveforms, and they look a little bit different than your default recorded time waveforms. So we'll go look at the acquisition step to see what I set up to make batch analysis easier. So when we go in here, we see that I changed the waveform name to RTW as opposed to the full recorded time waveform. And this just makes things easier to look at in the memory list later on down the line. Your just waveforms and other ensuing curves that you generate from analysis aren't extremely long. So I would recommend that. I also checked off this use signal path so that each RTW can have the same initial name, but it shows where each came from. So this is a very useful thing to know when you're setting up your sequences for this type of batch processing, or just in general for complex sequences in SoundCheck. So we're good on the acquisition step. Now what I'll do is I'll create a group of these two recorded time waveforms. So I will highlight them, click new group, give it a name, and I'll click OK. So there's my group right there. All right, so now what we need to do is actually put an analysis step in this sequence. I'll just drag a basic fundamental in there, and we open it up. And on the waveform tab, I need to make sure that I'm pointing at the group. And as soon as we do that, we click OK, and we look, and we see that we have two curves here. But we can make this a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the fundamental analysis step. And in this curves tab, we're going to click input data name, add input data name. Now when we click OK, we can see that they both have the name fundamental. However, they show which signal paths they actually came from. And this makes it a lot easier to understand what's happening, where your curves are coming from, which signal paths. But notice that we have these two inputs that we're acquiring data from. However, we only have one analysis step and one acquisition step. So that's pretty awesome. Let's run this sequence and take a look. In summary, I hope all of you learned how you can utilize batch processing or batch analysis to reduce the amount of steps needed in a sequence or to facilitate offline processing or analysis of data. As always, thank you for watching. If you're curious about more applications of SoundCheck, please explore the rest of our YouTube channel or our company website. Take care.